thank you for your time and getting to talk about this documentary series because when I first saw it, I was like so excited for it.
Oh, cool.
And
Thank
as
you.
you shared in my story of Instagram, and it's like I put it out in the universe for it to come to me. So, um,
Oh, cool. Awesome.
yes. So I did cheat. I did watch the first episode one, and then skip to four. So we'll start with episode one.
Okay.
And I thought that was like a warm up of what was to come and the emotional aspect.
Hmm.
And the way you had Sharon Osbourne relive
Hmm.
that very painful experience, that was harsh.
Yes. Yeah, it was very surprising, because I don't think I've ever heard. I mean, I grew up as a huge fan of Randy Rhoads and Ozzy. And I've heard that story being, I've heard stories about that particular day in other media my whole life. That's kind of one of the more infamous, legendary sort of moments in rock, and as tragic as it is, and it's something you hear about so much, but to be able to be sitting across from her, who I've never really heard her talk about that day that much, and that she went there and was as raw and emotional about it was, yeah, that's an experience I'll never forget as long as I live, that. So to me, that kind of brings a whole new perspective on that story in terms of, yeah, because it's so easy as fans, not to take it for granted, but it's so easy as fans that it sort of lives on in this kind of abstract, story, sensational story somewhere. But when you're sitting across from someone who was there that day and experienced that nightmare unfolding in real time, I mean, that is a heavy experience, heavy emotional experience, and it was for me. So yeah, her reliving that day is absolutely unforgettable, and it is in the show. It's very very effective as well too.
Did you anticipate that coming? Because I didn't see that coming. Her be
No,
like like narrating exactly what happened.
no, no. I didn't expect it at all. Her interview came together kind of towards the end of the process of doing that episode. And when I got there, I really wasn't sure, what she was in terms of that day, how far she would go, quote unquote, or what she would say. And as soon as we started talking about like the lead up to them arriving in Florida and, that morning and then how things transpired, she just she started and didn't stop, and she just went through the whole experience, and it was very emotional, as you could see in the episode. Of course, when she breaks down, and it's very emotional, very effective. But yeah, that was something I did not anticipate for her to go into that much detail. But I know it was important for her to participate. She really wanted to participate. Sort of on behalf of Kathy Rhodes, Randy's sister, and of course her whole family. And so, yeah, I was just so, grateful that she did, and that she was so open and honest about it, because that's something I had never seen or heard before.
What do you think it is? I mean, after filming all these episodes for some of these artists that, you know, were gone so young,
Yeah.
yet still they're remembered as if they had been performing for decades. What is it?
Well, for Randy specifically, I mean, it really speaks to how great he was. This idea that, he only really had about 2.5 years, 2.5 to 3 years, if, to really shine under Ozzy and to create that body of work, and the fact that that body of work is kind of untouchable, and as far as guitarists are concerned, and how it's still inspiring kids. I mean, the fact that like we still today see like young teenagers on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, like learning Crazy Train or Mr. Crowley or whatever, and like that's still a gateway for a kid to pick up a guitar is amazing, and it really shows just how impactful his music was and how iconic his music is. And so yeah, even, and I'm sure not even most of those kids know the story of Randy, like that he died young or things like that. which just shows that like on its own merits that music stands the test of time, which is amazing.
Yeah, and then learning that he seeked to learn more and
Yes.
scheduling music teachers while on tour.
Yeah, well, I think for us that was a big part of what we wanted to highlight with the story. To go kind of beyond just his tragic passing, is what was his journey. And his journey is equally interesting. The idea that here's a guy who came up through the 70s, dreamed of wanting to achieve that rock and roll rock star status, ever since he was a little kid, and working his ass off to achieve that. I mean, literally, it's not easy to do what he does, and to obviously he has a natural gift, but still, like the work he put in to becoming that level of a guitar player and to achieve that goal, getting that goal, and of course doing it in a very, in his mind, which was probably kind of through a side door, because he wasn't a fan of Black Sabbath or Ozzy's music prior to that. This was something that that he kind of looked at as maybe not the perfect sort of scenario for him, but he recognized that this was an opportunity that presented itself to him, and it might not come around all that often, and so he went with it, and then he achieved that status of what he wanted to achieve, but then sort of found that maybe it wasn't all what he thought it was going to be, or that he wanted to step away and to do a very solitary learning classical music and having a different expression through music than what would be. I mean, learning classical music, as a solo classical artist, is probably the furthest you could get from, the arenas, the sort of like arena rock experience of being in Ozzy Osbourne's band at that time. So that was also fascinating. There was like a reluctance to him about wanting to be a rock star that I think is very fascinating. And that's, I think, what adds that X factor into his music, is that he's not just up there to live that lifestyle and, where you're kind of phoning it in, and you're just there to be part of the party. No, he's there to, create art and to create something that's a much deeper, more meaningful expression, and so I think that's what's important for people to learn and understand about him, that he's not just about like the way he died. He's also about the way he lived and the way he approached his art.
Now he is playing with Ozzy up there. They are together creating music again.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Yeah. Yeah, the timing around, Ozzy's passing too is just very coincidental in terms of us releasing this project at this time. But I think that's also a huge part of the story, and that's something that maybe other people may take for granted, or they may underappreciate, is their collaboration. The idea that these two guys who came from two completely different walks of life, two different parts of the world, who kind of came together by chance and happened to create this awesome, iconic music that still exists today. And I think the episode is also about their partnership as much as it is about anything else.
When was the interview with Sharon? When did it take place?
If I could remember correctly, I think it was within a week of Ozzy's last show. So
I see.
I think that was like late July, if I'm remembering correctly. Somewhere in there. I think it was 1 week before the Back to the Beginning show. And we did it in Birmingham. And yeah, so it was very close to Ozzy's last show.
Well, like I said, I did skip to episode 4. And from watching the Randy Rhoads episode, I was sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched episode 4, and then ended up depressed.
Is that the Chuck episode?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we skipped because my brother, he was like, "What are you watching? Why aren't you watching? Why aren't you waiting for me?"
That's amazing.
So,
Yeah, I mean the Chuck episode is extremely sad. Yeah, there's no way around that for sure. Yeah, but that's very faithful to what that family and Chuck experienced. And that was something that we wanted to make sure came across, because in addition to the very unique person that he was, and how he, at a very, very young age, had the ambitions of being, signed to a record label, achieved that, basically forged his own sound, within metal, which is not always easy to do. There's a lot of bands are very derivative of one another, and he was one of those rare voices and talents that came in and, completely brought metal to the next level in a way, with some may say creating his own genre. And so it was very important, but also he's also the type of guy who very quickly realized the sort of like how the tropes and traits of metal can get corny, and let's get away from Dungeons and Dragons and wizards and Satan, and let's start writing music about like what the real evils are, which are in this world that we're living in now, other human beings, and writing deeper, sentiments about that. And so, and it's tragic also in a way that Death never really, while they were a band, an active band, really achieved near the status that they have now, posthumously for Chuck. Death is just like Steve says in the episode, it's a logo I see everywhere now. It's in all the kids got it on, they got it on their denim jackets. They're all going out and buying, reissues of the records on vinyl. And, it's a hugely popular band now. And I think that's because a lot of people have realized the music has stood the test of time. And Chuck, such an innovator, influenced so many bands, after his death, after his passing. So, and for us, that story was an opportunity to, because a large part of this show was born out of a observation that, metal is so often misunderstood and misrepresented in media and in shows and docs and in pop culture. And I think this episode with Chuck really shows like, how like someone like him at a very young age experienced a very deep, horrible tragedy with the death of his brother that really shaped, that was his trauma that really shaped him as a person, and was something that, he put into his expression, into his art, into his music. And that's what gave that music, I think, just like a real foundation and a real, I guess, a realness, a rawness and a realness to it that like other bands who just kind of came in and they like metal and they play, it doesn't have that same soul that he brought to his music. And so I think it was a chance for us to really look at like how personal this music can be, and how much of it can come from a real traumatic place and sort of, inspire a real deep and difficult exploration of, humanity. And I think he's like perfectly exemplifies that. And then obviously just this very random, horrible, disease that he's inflicted with. And, being someone like him who was so all about the control over his own music. And then the one thing, it's like tragic in this almost Shakespearean sense. It's like this one thing that he can't control, is what afflicts him, and that's, yeah, it's a tragic story, no matter how you slice it. But I think a lot of people have family members or friends or have gone through that awful experience of dealing with, a loved one who's going through something like cancer. And I think they can relate to that. And I think that just brings a whole other layer of like, relatable humanity to Chuck as a person. To me, that even makes him greater than he even is. I already think he is, Yeah.
Was it easy to get the family involved? I mean, if you even had the dad.
Yeah. Who's never really done an interview before. The dad's never done an interview, which was amazing. Yeah, this was the first episode we actually filmed for the series. It was kind of like the test case in a way. And yeah, I mean, we spoke to the family at length, trying to tell them, showing them episodes of our other TV show and, how we like to approach stories and how we're kind of all about trying to be as respectful and honest and raw and emotional and empathetic as we try to be. And they were really receptive to, and flattered that we wanted to do an episode on Chuck. They were obviously protective of him as they should be. But once we were able to meet, in person and, got to kind of give more of a sense of who, the other was, it was great. And the experience of working with them was amazing. But being in the room and hearing them talk about that journey of trying to fight for Chuck's life is it's one of the most heavy and emotional stories I've ever heard in my entire life, of just and the episode, unfortunately is only so long, but, the true breadth of those 3 years that they spent trying to do anything that they could to save him is inspiring, but also very heavy and very, very sad. Very sad. Yeah.
Very
It's
sad.
the saddest episode for sure. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for telling me that. I was like, I was gonna watch more, but I was like, I don't think I can handle it right now. Tonight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, there's a couple in there that aren't like technically sad. Like I think the Confess episode is very inspiring, that these guys really came out the other end of this really crazy experience, horrible experience. And then of course the Anne Boleyn story, the Hellion episode, I think also is an episode that's also very inspiring of someone who came out the other side of a very terrible situation and was able to make something very positive of it. So you did start with two very heavy, very grim episodes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time and congratulations. I can't wait to continue and some of these artists that have fans that weren't even born yet. My brother is one of them,
Yes.
for example. So
I
it's
love that.
yeah, it's exciting and the what music unites all
Yes.
generations.
That's right. That is absolutely right. Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciated it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.